Hello and welcome back to the third video in the Cybersecurity Careers and Certifications mini-series. The first episode we talked about what it takes to find a job, and the second episode we talked about the different jobs that are available, and in this one we'll talk about a very important part of many of the cybersecurity jobs and careers, and that is certification and education. So certification is important for a cybersecurity professional for a number of reasons. One is that we are a very young discipline, and that means that we don't have long established educational programs yet that employers can rely on for providing the skills we need, simply because we don't necessarily know what skills we need. We do have lots of different programs with cybersecurity twists. For example, for us at Adelphi University, we have computer science programs, and we approach the cybersecurity discipline from the computer science perspective. Others might come at it from a policy perspective, from a management perspective, or from any other range of disciplines. The problem with that is that, one, we have a rapidly changing environment. Two, we don't have a way to provide education at a proven way yet, because, like I said, we don't know what that proven way needs to be. So at this point, employers have to figure out who should we be hiring. They can't rely on degrees because they don't exist. And so they have to rely on other assessments, third parties that have tested a candidate for a very specific purpose and say, yeah, they meet these requirements. We certify them as being able to provide job skills. And that's what certification does. It's an independent assessment of someone's experience and their skills. It doesn't mean it's the end-all be-all, but for the time being, until our discipline matures more, it's one of the important pillars on which we can make hiring decisions. The most well-known cybersecurity certification is the CISSP, the Certified Information Systems Security Professional. It is granted by an organization called ISC², the International Information Systems Security Certification Council, maybe, something along those lines. And it is, like I said, the gold standard. There's a lot of argument as to why CISSP is useful or why it's not useful, but that argument needs to be framed in its purpose. And the CISSP certification is a broad certification that focuses on the process of organizing and running a cybersecurity function. It's not a technical certification that you use to demonstrate technical proficiency. It is a certification that shows that you understand what it takes to be a professional in this field, from not just looking at your own niche application. In order to be certified as a CISSP, you need to have a number of criteria that you meet. The first one is you have to pass a written exam. In that written exam, you're being asked questions. It used to be an old Scantron type thing where you had 6 hours to complete several hundred multiple choice questions. This has now gone mostly to computer-based testing, and the question pool, the number of questions you have to answer, changes as your proficiency in certain areas has been demonstrated or not. But once you pass that exam, the next stage would be to find someone else, another CISSP who's in good standing, who's willing to act as your sponsor. That person will check your resume to make sure that you have the required 5 years of experience. He will or she will attest to your personality as being an honorable and trustworthy person. And then you get to pay fees. And at that point you can be certified. To stay certified, you have to engage in continuing education, CPEs, continual professional education, 40 hours every year. And that is to acknowledge the fact that our discipline changes a lot. The 5 years of professional experience become 4 when you have a college degree. And it doesn't have to be directly in a security field, but it has to be in a fields related to cybersecurity, directly related to cybersecurity. Once you meet all of these criteria, you can be certified as a CISSP. For most people who are used to studying and who are decent at taking standardized tests, passing the exam is doable with some preparation. Obviously, the 5 years of professional experience takes time to accumulate. I would say about 5 years, maybe 4. And that means that fresh out of school and your first job, you will most likely not be eligible to be a CISSP. However, there is a trick that you can meet all of the requirements except for the experience, and at that point you're considered an associate of ISC squared, and that has little but some value. What is more interesting is that at that point you can start listing these things as resume items. So for example, you could say striving to become CISSP certified. This is totally true. You're not lying. You're not telling a hiring manager that you have the credential. You're just saying that you're working on getting one. And what often happens is that when we're hiring, the first thing we do is do a keyword search through our resumes and figuring out, okay, let's see what comes back if I type in CISSP. And if your resume says, oh, I'm working on one, you're still coming back on that initial search. And you haven't been lying. You're not saying you have it. You're not saying that you almost have it. You're just saying I'm working towards it. And so it's always highly recommended to do that, is to game that system where you know that people are searching for keywords. Make sure that they have these keywords to find, but don't lie in the process. The study guide or the materials tested in the CISSP are listed here. I'm not going to read them all out, but it's a pretty broad range of topics, from risk management to engineering to operations and to incident response is in there as well. Our classes at Adelphi are more or less aligned with this. Our CSC 280 class, the Intro to Cybersecurity, does cover about 80% of the CISSP materials. Once you start taking 380 as well, that goes up to 90 to 95%. So this good preparation with a little bit of extra studying, and maybe take the emergency management class, UEM 530, business continuity planning, to round out that process. But there's no reason why, as an Adelphi student who was planning for this, you shouldn't be able to take the exam after graduation and pass. A competing organization to ISC squared is Asaka. They have their own certifications, a wide range of them, just like ISC squared also has a range of certifications other than the CISSP. Asaka has the two main ones, the CISM and the CISA. The CISM is a management certification, but it's management specific to cybersecurity. They look at things like governance, risk management, program development, and incident management. And again, like with the CISSP, it requires you to pass an exam and to have the professional experience. The other one is the CISA, the auditor, where it's not a management certification, but it demonstrates your proficiency in systems audit. And so we're talking about governance, audits in general. How do we buy systems and operate them? And again, same thing as before. You have to pass an exam and have 5 years of experience, and of course pay an annual maintenance fee. I've had both CISA and CISM. I relinquished them both because I don't need them for my current job, and they do cost money and effort to maintain. But they're both useful certifications, and both highlight different aspects of being a security officer. OSSCP is a fun certification. It's not management or audit. It is technical hands-on hacking. It is meant to certify that you know how to break into systems as a penetration tester, for example. You take a class which is very similar to 380 content that we do, computer and network security. And then you finally end the class with a 48-hour assessment in the form of a capture the flag session, which you document into a written report, and then the report is the basis for making the determination whether or not you get certified. There are no continuing education credits required. There's no annual maintenance fees. Once you are an OSCP, you stay in OSCP. I had a blast when I did it. It's highly recommended. And of all the certifications, it's also one of the more affordable ones. It's not as well known as any of the other certifications, but the people who do know it value it greatly. The Certified Ethical Hacker is similar to the OSCP, but they have a different approach. CEH seems to focus more on tools and techniques, while OSCP focuses more on methods, and then the tools follow. My personal feeling is that OSCP is more in-depth, but it is not as widely known as the Certified Ethical Hacker. If you're looking for an offensive methods certification that is widely recognized, then the CEH is a good one to pursue. And then GIAC, the Global Information Assurance Consortium, is a certification branch, part of, maybe independently, but closely related to the SANS Institute. Their certifications are highest grade. I've held most of the ones that you see listed here, but there's many more. Hands down, probably the best technical non-vendor specific training you can get. Also the most expensive one by a lot, thousands upon thousands of dollars for a single course and certification. All of their certifications are valid for 4 years, and they require recertification or CPEs afterwards. I have let most of my relinquish because they're, at this point for me, too expensive to maintain. But if you can get them, if you can get your boss to pay for them, absolutely, hands down, absolutely worth your time. And so the next question then becomes, well, if these certifications are so important, why am I in school in the first place? What about a master's degree or a PhD? So maybe strange coming from a college professor, but you do not need a master's degree or a PhD for your first entry-level job yet. Skills are more important than degrees. However, and of course that's the key, if I have a choice between two candidates that are otherwise equally qualified and one has a master's degree, I am going to look at them because apparently they did have the intellectual ability to obtain that master's degree. Doesn't mean the other one doesn't, but the other one didn't demonstrate that. It also means that they are willing and able to invest in themselves, and those are qualities I'm looking for in a hire. So a master's degree is not a waste. It does give you a competitive edge. A PhD is a different story. A PhD might actually count against you. In my case, it did. When I was starting to look for my first jobs after finishing my PhD work, almost all employers skipped over my resume because it was assumed that I would be overqualified for the position or that I was going to be asking too much money. Unless you're going to be planning to do a career in academic research or teaching, don't bother with a PhD. There are some exceptions. There are some industries which highly value a PhD, but there's few and far between. That business culture also determines what role a master's degree will have for you. Especially the younger organizations, the startups, the agile shops typically value skills and experience over degrees. But if you're looking at more established organizations that have been around for a long time, that maybe have more of a business focus than a technical focus, advanced degrees will help. Maybe not for your first job, but definitely when it comes time for you to grow to your middle tier jobs, having that advanced degree will help. My opinion is that as our discipline matures and it becomes more clear what skills we are looking for, and education will match that, education will become more important. Your academic degrees will become more relevant. We're not there yet, but I do expect in the next 5 to 7 years that we'll get there. Also, the question I always get, well, I'm not going to get a master's in computer science. I'm looking to be, a C-suite executive. I am going to get an MBA instead. And my answer to that is, well, if you're looking to be a C-suite executive, that's exactly what you should be doing. You should be getting your MBA. But if you're looking to stay as a technologist, for example, you're looking to stay as a highly specialized practitioner, then you need a specialized degree for that as well. Overall, I do think that we're not quite at the point yet that degrees are important, advanced degrees I should say, but we will get there in the next few years. The one question that we need to answer then is, when are you going to get those degrees? In practice, it's easier to plan for this ahead of time. Many schools, including us, are now offering 4+1 options, which means that in 4 years, as normal, you get your undergraduate degree and then 1 more year for your master's degree. That's probably the best way to do it right now. It is an accelerated pace. It is a pace that you can handle, especially if you're still used to being in school. It's also reducing the costs of being in higher education because tuition is high. You'd probably get more out of a master's degree if you have a few more years of professional experience and maturity under your belt. But at that point, other things have started playing a game too. You're starting to be no longer the new guy, which means that you're starting to have more responsibilities at work. You may have a mortgage, you may have a family that relies on you, and at that point, going back to school might become very tricky. So if you're going to pursue a master's degree, then doing so right after your undergraduate degree is probably the most practical approach to do so. So that was it. That was what I had to say about finding a job. I have a lot more to say about it, but that will save for one-on-one conversations with people who come to see me. That's it for now. Thank you for paying attention.